Rachel, thank you very much for taking the time. Most important thing to talk about, I think, is your drive with your mixed doubles partner from Ottawa. I happen to be sitting beside Karik when you sent a picture. Can you maybe elaborate on the drive and the energy level of your mixed doubles partner?
Yeah, I don't know if I made him sweep too much last weekend or what, but yeah, he had a bit of a snooze on the way up. But it was a long drive, 3.5 hours, and Em and I were chatting, and I think his least favorite music is country, so we saw that he was asleep and got to listen to country the whole way up.
That was a pretty good shot of him sleeping. The little. Can I say drool? Is it? Can I do that? Can I say that? That's all right. But anyway, great shot. Anyway, let's talk about your new team. Obviously, I shouldn't say new team, new member, and then the new positions. I'm really interested in talking about, of course, Tracy Fleury coming on the crew with Sarah Wilkes and Emma. Of course, Emma's been with you forever. I guess the first thing I need to ask is, how did two of the very best players in the world at skip get together and decide to go and play the back end together? How did that happen?
Yeah, I think there was a lot of changes over the summer. People wanting to hit the reset button, and some people stepping away, and some people moving on to do other things. And we just thought it was a really good fit. The game's kind of evolved that you need that IQ, that sweeping smarts, the strategy. You need it at every position. And every rock is so important in setting up the end, and being able to manage rocks as you go up the lineup is important at every position. And so we feel like we have that with the lineup, with Tracy sliding in, bringing her expertise and her skipping knowledge. I think both of us call a very similar game. She might be sometimes it's 50-50, right? And so it's nice to just let her take care of that and defer to her and work on other parts of the game and trying to make sure that this lineup is working in all directions.
Yeah, I think it's fantastic. I've got so many questions to ask about this. So just so everybody knows, so Tracy is holding the broom, calling the game, but you're throwing last ones, so you're sweeping.
Yeah.
You've skipped almost your entire life. How much have you swept? How new is that for you?
Yeah, I think I've always swept a lot in practice. Obviously never in a game. So the nuances of communicating with another person is probably pretty new for me. With mixed doubles and that, at least you're sweeping, but you're sweeping alone. So you're kind of on your own island and you don't have to let anybody else know what you're thinking. So that part has definitely been different, trying to make sure communicating not only to Tracy at the other end, but also with the other sweeper. So that's been definitely it's going to be a learning curve over the next couple months.
Yeah, and I guess just from what the way I look at the game, I always like to be able to watch the rock come down before I put my broom down for my last shot. But it's different for you now. You've always been able to watch your team throw in the other team and figure out the ice. And then when it came to your last important shot, if it's a hack waiter or something where you need to know the ice, but it's going to be interesting. How are you going to be able to keep, pay enough attention to all the spots in the ice? How's that going to work for you playing, I want to call it the third position and then throwing the last ones, if you're not holding the broom and throwing the last ones?
Yeah, I think once Tracy and I, obviously everyone and every team throws it a little bit differently. So I think once we get really close on the same page, obviously it's really early and we haven't been able to have a ton of practice together. And there's not a ton of ice right now throughout Canada. So they're slowly putting in ice across Canada and we'll be able to practice a little bit more. But I think once we kind of dial in our throws and I know exactly how her throw is going to react compared to mine, then I think putting that broom down will be pretty simple. I'll be able to see her lines and as well the other team's skip throws as well. So that's definitely helpful that I'm able to see some, and then I can watch from the other end. And I've seen Emma throw so often that over top, seeing her release in that is helpful in reading the ice that way from a sweeping perspective on the side. And then as well, you're able to watch some of those rocks from the other end, seeing how they're coming in and things like that.
One thing I noticed, I was at the Saville and in the Saville shootout, and I was sitting behind the glass watching your guys' game. I really wanted to try to pay attention to the team and just how everything was going. And I did notice, and then I'd love to know how it's going with, I believe that I saw Tracy throwing maybe a little more rotation than what she would have thrown in the years past, because you tend to throw quite a lot of rotation, and Emma and Sarah. So is that kind of by design that Tracy's throwing a little bit more rotation than what she normally would have? But that is kind of the way the game's going anyway, isn't it, Rachel?
Yeah, I think so. I think the game is going and trending in that direction. And I think every team kind of makes up the formula of what works for them. So I think it's really early right now. So we're all fine tuning our deliveries and releases. But finding that right rotation for our team is something we're gonna continually to work on.
Okay, and I really want to talk about Sarah and Emma on the front end. There's some big studies done this summer in Winnipeg. Were you part of the studies? I will cut this out.
Nope.
You weren't part of it. Okay, it was sweeping studies. No, why would they get you there? They would never have invited me. They definitely wouldn't have invited me there. A terrible sweeper. But you were supposed to go. Anyway, there's some. Now we'll go back in here. So there were some important studies that went on in Winnipeg, and height of the sweeper for power and angle of the broom angle seemed to make a difference as far as the amount of carry and also the amount of directional sweeping that you can do. You've got in my opinion, you've got an incredibly strong front end now, muscle to muscle against all the other players in the world. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that advantage you may have having Emma, who's thrown third for you for 1,000 years, but now going in, I believe, second position, Sarah at lead, the strength of your front end. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I mean, watching kind of Sarah develop over the last couple of years and how much work she puts into the game, and not just with throwing, but also her strength. And she's just an absolute powerhouse. And then Emma, same thing. And with third, it was kind of like a balance of both. And now that she's kind of focusing a little bit more on sweeping and that, I think that's a huge advantage for us. They both have that back end IQ to be able to help them out as to when, sometimes you have to make that judgment as a sweeper, how hard to go, when you can go, how long you can wait, kind of tolerance the shot as it's coming down, and making that judgment is really huge, and something that you can't really teach. You need those years of experience and that knowledge of strategy and what we're trying to achieve. So I think that's just a huge advantage for the two of them as a front end tandem to be able to kind of put the rocks exactly where I want them to. Sure.
So to expand on that a little bit, you've got let's say new front end. I know they're not new, but moving different positions.
Sure.
And then Tracy. So I'd love to hear about your schedule this year, and then looking forward to the quad. Just because you've got a new player and everybody's new positions and new jobs and all these things, responsibilities on the ice, are you going to play more this year? But it is a first year of a quadrennial. So what is your plan that way?
Yeah, I think we have about an average schedule. I don't think we're playing a ton. I think the last 4 years was a lot on everyone with COVID and everything that happened, whether it was kids or some stressful times. And so I think that for us, we're not going to kill ourselves playing and being gone and away from our families every weekend. And we're kind of trying to find a balance between that home family life responsibility and being able to also compete and be competitive on the road.
I'd like to get a little bit into the business part of the game for you. You've been playing at the highest level for a very long time now. You're extremely strong on social media as a team. You're on there, not you personally, but the whole team is on there all the time. Like, I follow you guys, of course. Do you have, when it comes to sponsorships, is there an agent involved, PR people to help with this incredible amount of social media? How does that work? I'd love to know. I just don't think everybody that pays attention to curling from the very highest level. How does it work? Because you're on there all the time.
Yeah, I think that social media is pretty powerful for branding and making sure that we stay connected to our fan base and family and friends, and just kind of having fun with it because they see such a serious side on the ice. And sometimes we kind of have had some questionable things kind of asked towards us, and We just want to show like we do have a lot of fun on the road, and yes, it's a business, and we take what we do really seriously on the ice, just like any sport. But there's also some opportunities to have fun and travel, and we really love what we do, and we're just grateful and thankful for the opportunities that we have. We definitely never want to take any of this for granted. You never know when your last slam is going to be. So we just want to make sure that we're having fun and kind of giving some insight to our fans and our friends, and being able to showcase our sponsors a little bit more, because commercials and things like that are not as prevalent. You can record stuff, skip ahead, and just being able to support our sponsors that allow us to do what we do, traveling and supporting us financially to be able to compete and go on the road. We're just really appreciative of that and want to be able to show it.
Well, I think you're doing a great business job. Actually, you're everywhere all the time. So fantastic. I really wanted to ask about that because your team, you're really strong at that, and I just didn't know why. So thank you very much. The new event you played in Fredericton. And I wanted to ask you, there's been so many messages sent to Inside Curling to us about the no extra end.
Yeah.
And just, I guess, being able to make sure of when the end of the game will happen from podcast, streaming and broadcast point of view. Right. Your thoughts on having just a shootout at the end and not extra ends, first of all?
Mm-hmm. I don't think it's ideal from like a curling perspective. I mean, for baseball, you wouldn't just like next one to hit a home run wins instead of extra innings. It's kind of the similar to curling, where because of the way that the game goes, usually you're throwing on one side of the sheet and the other side's left for probably at least half an hour. And if you go and try and throw on that side, it's pretty tough. It's a pretty tough guess. You saw some pretty brutal guesses, and for the game to come down to a guess on that one side is pretty challenging. I know it makes maybe a lot of sense for TV and maybe for fans. I'm not sure if they enjoyed that or not, but it was definitely difficult for us, obviously.
Yeah. I should have mentioned that with the no extra end, the team that would have had the hammer normally would choose which side they got to throw on.
Yeah, which was news, to us.
So it's new to everybody. It was a brand new thing. I should have mentioned that earlier, and that's what Rachel's alluding to with, okay, you don't have hammer any extra. There hasn't been a rock thrown on one side of the sheet. The other side's been played. The team that could have hammer is played on the 15-second side. The other side is X.
Who knows?
13, 14, 12 and a half. Nobody knows the speed. So, so great point. Thank you.
Yeah, I think if maybe both teams got to throw on the same side, then it would probably be more representative of being two teams being able to try and make that really good. But still, it is tough to come down to one shot. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Right, rather than a whole end.
Yeah.
I'd like to hear your thoughts on, they had two halves timing-wise. I think it was 19 minutes. I could be wrong. I think it was 19 minutes per half. Yeah. Your thoughts on that? Because we did talk last year. I'm not sure if I talked to you about it, Rachel, or not, but a time per end. And instead of the whole game, now a half. Okay, half or even time per end. Your thoughts on that? Because I think we're getting close to that in the sport to control the amount of time from start to finish. Your thoughts on, first of all, what you played with in Fredericton at the points bet event at 19-minute half, and I'd like to hear your thoughts at the end as to per end. Yeah,
I think I didn't really notice much of a difference between the full game or a half. I mean, if the team in the beginning had more time, was able to carry it over, then I feel like that's kind of a disadvantage for them because they played quickly for the first half. But it didn't, like, we played two games and I would have never known that the time was any different than it was. It didn't really affect us too much.
Fast team.
Well, and I think we just played about that pace. Like, I think we had an extra minute after the first half, and the first game ended early and the second game came down to the last couple seconds. So for sure, I think the halves didn't really make much difference for us. I didn't notice a difference yet, but I mean, we only played two games, so it's hard to get a sense for that.
Yeah, it was a single knockout event in Fredericton, which is kind of unusual as well for curling.
Mm-hmm. we have played in a per end event in the past. The World Cup in Shanghai was 4.5 minutes an end, I think. And that was definitely stressful a couple times. It was more like last end more often, because sometimes an end is complicated and it's nice to have that extra time. And it's still good for TV. I don't think a team should be punished for an exciting end. I think that's great TV. And I think, if you start kind of whittling down on time, then teams might be more inclined to just keep it open, and might be less interesting. I think for TV and that the time clock's been okay. I don't know. What were your thoughts on it?
Yeah, it's just a matter of, I guess, looking at it right from a halves, which I thought was reasonable,
Sure.
and then and I think kind of a natural progression will be per end. And I'm not sure if we need to be that fast, or maybe we do. And that was kind of my point in asking you. One other thing this may the last topic here, Rachel. One thing I was really excited about at the event in Fredericton, run by Curling Canada, but you got to wear your years-long uniform. You weren't given unique uniforms, or were you? You were allowed to wear your normal uniforms, weren't you?
We weren't. No, we had to get custom jerseys made for that one event.
Why?
Conflicting sponsors.
So there's some saved sponsorship. So you were, as long as you didn't have any overlapping sponsors, you could wear your uniform. Otherwise, you had to get them made to comply with. How many sponsors were saved?
We had to remove
title.
CoolBet from our jerseys. Yeah.
Okay. That's
because PointsBet was the title sponsor. Yeah.
Because I thought, you know what, maybe that opens the door for wearing normal uniforms all year round, other than a World Championship or the Olympics, of course. But otherwise, maybe be able to wear your normal uniform all the time. And I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. And take it one step further, home and away, kind of a white-based, light-based, or a dark-based, so that when you play another team, you don't have the same kind of color uniform. So your thoughts on, first of all, expanding the game so you can wear your uniform all the time, the Homan brand uniform all the time in home and away.
Yeah, I think that would be great. A lot of teams already have kind of different colored uniforms. And I think it's more superstition for that reasoning as to why you're wearing darker lights. But yeah, I think that would be great to distinguish on TV, because sometimes when you have the same color, people get confused. I've even watched some games and it just looks like the same jersey. I'm totally in agreement with that. And yeah, I think it would be great if we could wear our sponsors for the whole year. I think that would be great. I mean, our sponsors pay for what we're able to do and being able to travel and come to these events. And we want to be able to support them in every event that we're in. So it just seems to make
so much sense. Like, we talked just a few minutes ago about how much work you guys do as your team with social media and building the Homan team brand. Like everybody knows your brand now because you're on there all the time. But then you go to certain events and, well, wait a minute, that's you're wearing other stuff. Like, what's going on? Yeah. And that's my point, is that, the teams and the marketing group behind them work so hard to build the brand, and then you go to certain events and you can't wear your stuff. I hope that maybe because the event in Fredericton allowed uniforms, maybe that's a start of something new.
Yeah, that would be great. And even the way that sponsorship is sold in curling and in Canada, that we can implement that. I mean, every other sport has it. So it would be great if we could continue to represent the sponsors that support us throughout the whole year, and not just for certain events, right? Like, they're still supporting us, and sometimes we're not able to showcase that. And there are rules in place in that, and we understand that there are stipulations here and there, but absolutely, that would be phenomenal if we could support them.
Well, thank you very much for taking the time, Rachel. Good luck.
Thank you so much, Kevin. Appreciate it.
Have a great season.
Thank you.